All right. I'm so freaking excited to have Healthillie on. We have been connecting on Instagram for years. I mean, first found your account in 2020 and I was like, holy shit, this girl is doing the work that I had just started waking up to. And I'm just so excited to have you on the podcast because we both just love exposing truth and we just put it out there real, and you've always been someone I've looked up to on
Oh,
social media for your willingness to just be bold and rebellious and to speak up about stuff that matters. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and who you are and what you're doing.
yeah, I'm doing a lot. There's a lot going on. So hi, I'm Illy, also known as Healthillie on Instagram and TikTok, and I have my own business called Live Healthily, which was like the child of all my like fitness trauma, essentially. But I've been in the fitness industry for about 10 years, and pretty much everything that I preach today are things that I used to preach and do for my clients and for myself. And obviously today it's the complete opposite side of that because I try to tell people that those things that I used to preach and the things that I preach now are because I was so injured by those ideologies and everything that's kind of promoted by the fitness industry, like counting your calories and, macros are the only things that matter and everything has to have protein in it and like just this whole horrible mindset. And I ended up really sick in the process. And I hit a point where, doctors weren't really helping me. They didn't really know what was going on. They would just tell me everything was normal, my labs were normal. And I know a lot of people, when they get that type of reaction, you kind of just feel lost. And kind of through this journey and through everything that I've learned, which was obviously the hard way because I had to get really sick before, I kind of woke up to all of it. I realized that a lot of the things, not only in our food, but also in our fitness supplements, which are essentially marketed as healthier, right? A protein bar is healthier than a candy bar. I noticed that a lot of these candy bars and protein bars actually share a lot of the same ingredients. So what was actually making them different? Because although I thought I ate very healthy, I was eating a lot of the same ingredients as even if I was eating junk food or if I was eating a protein bar or protein shake of some sort. And that's kind of what sparked my business, which is Live Healthily. A couple years later, I'd say about 3 years after I kind of started my journey. And yeah, now I kind of just preach to everybody what to look out for and not to fall for some really nice marketing or a sponsored athlete that's pretty much telling you need to have this, Cinnabon flavored protein powder or peach ring flavored pre-workout in order to be healthy and reach all these goals, because we're clearly seeing that, it's not the best for everyone out there.
I mean, yeah. There's so much in there. I'm so
So
excited to
much
dig
to
into.
unpack. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
There is. And so I kind of have a question that I want to start with that I feel like will just kind of guide us into this bigger conversation. But how would you describe, like, what does it mean to be healthy?
Yeah, and I think that differs for everyone, right? I mean, for me, I have pretty high standards for health, for myself. I want to wake up every day with energy, and not like the type of energy where I'm bouncing off the walls, but energy and just motivation and excitement for the day. I feel like that's a lot of things that people don't wake up feeling. Most people wake up and they dread, the simple things like even eating breakfast, like because their stomach hurts or they feel nauseous and I lived like that for years. And obviously there's things that I still struggle with today because of all the neglect that I did to my body for 25, 26 years of my life. So there's still things that I have to heal that are going to take time. But yeah, I think for everybody, like it's those little minuscule moments where you feel this natural motivation and excitement for life. You feel healthy enough to go out for a walk on when you feel like it, not just as a dreadful thing that you feel like you have to do. That you're able to live and eat foods, all different types of foods, without being in chronic pain or discomfort. Having like a clear mind, right? I lived with years of brain fog, so now that I can actually form a sentence and not have to have like a brain fart every 12 minutes, is a bit was a really big marker for me when coming to my own health. So I think it's going to vary for everybody depending on the things that they struggle with. Another one for me was waking up every day without a headache. That's like a really big health marker for me because I was diagnosed with chronic migraines by my neurologist, and that's waking up with 15 migraines a month. So practically every day of the month, I was waking up with a migraine. That's like the minimum to be considered chronic. So yeah, it was hard for me to get through daily tasks. I would pretty much waste days just being in my bedroom, not being able to even look at light of any sort. I need to stay in a room with blackout curtains because I was so light sensitive. So yeah, I missed out on a lot of life during those years, not realizing that, although the my neurologist wanted to just simply put me on Percocets because nothing was showing up on my brain scans. He never thought to check my diet, but it was such a simple fix. I was literally just mineral deficient, specifically in magnesium. So yeah, my diet was truly lacking. And that's what was causing my chronic migraine. So yeah, when it comes to like what is healthy, I really feel like it's not my job to make that distinction or give somebody that definition because I feel like that's going to cause like this fake sense of like, oh, this is what I have to achieve. But I think it really just varies on the person. For me, I have a different idea, and the next person depending on what they struggle with. So for me, it's like that all around just vitality and energy and drive for life. Like I want to wake up every day and feel happy and ready to take on the day. And I feel like and I want to feel like that up until I'm like 80, until my last days.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my baseline for health. And once I feel like those start to become diminished, then I know I have some work I need to do, and things to support myself a little bit better through diet or stress or whatever the case may be. So
Right.
it's going to be different for everyone in that sense, I feel. But
Yeah.
those are kind of my things.
No, I agree. It really is. What I really took from that is like being in tune with your body. So I
Mm-hmm.
think most of us are just like go, 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 do, 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 work, work, work. And we're just so disconnected from our body to where our blood panels say we're healthy or the doctor says we're healthy. But like, I think the biggest indicator for ourselves is like, how do you feel? How much energy do you have? How's your sleep? How's your bowel movements? Like
Mhm.
all that stuff that we aren't really,
It's
not
really
enough
the
people are
things we take
discussing.
for granted. It's like I spent years not being able to like eat a meal without being in pain.
Yeah.
Where now it's like I can pretty much eat a lot of foods that I used to not be able to eat. And then if I do experience discomfort, that's actually out of the norm for me, where that was a very normal thing a couple years ago for me. So yeah, it's a lot of things that we take for granted, taking daily poops and feeling good when you eat and waking up and not being tired. Those a lot of people, they probably can't even tell you the last time they woke up and didn't feel tired. So these are like little things that we're told are normal because we all as a society deal with it. But in reality, it's like the bar is really low for what is considered healthy.
Right. And I feel like, I mean, you talk about this all the time, but what's really prevalent that we see on social media is these fitness girls and guys and hitting the gym and take this supplement and this pre-workout. And I feel like it's really blurring the line on what it means to be healthy. And I feel like we've been programmed a little bit by the diet industry to like look at this certain thing as healthy, be this
Yeah.
weight, and look this way. And what do you say to that as someone who lived that life and then someone who's living this life now? How do we, I don't know, how do we counteract all this noise of what
Yeah,
it means to be
yeah.
healthy and fit?
Yeah, because I see it from both perspectives. I see people who maybe are overweight or are unhappy with how they look. So they see a fitness influencer and think, oh, if I look like that, I'll overall be happy and healthier and all these things, right? And then you have people who are in the fitness industry, like I was myself, where I had my dream body, I had my abs, I had my my plump booty and my solid quads. Like I had all of that. And yeah, I struggled with really bad depression and self-image issues and anxiety and gut problems and period problems and migraine. Like I dealt with all that. And I think the fitness industry, I think the positive thing is that I have seen a lot of fitness accounts be open about their health struggles, but the downside is they tend not to correlate that with their diet and their lifestyle, because obviously we're told and we're encouraged to exercise, and we're encouraged to look a certain way. And it's very odd because I also feel like simultaneously a lot of these fitness accounts are very like pro body positivity movement, but they also kind of subconsciously push this idea that you have to be fit in order to be healthy, and you have to work out harder. And, if you're not losing weight, you have to, stop being lazy and hit the gym and work out on days, even if you don't want to work out. And you have to, count your calories and better, and you have to eat your macros and be better about your macros and have the best supplements. It's like, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? It's counterproductive. It doesn't really make sense for you to just be like, you love your body and love how you are. But at the same time, it's like, you're never going to be healthy until you do all the things that I say and follow my program and eat the way I eat and take the supplements I take. It's like this subconscious thing, like maybe they're not actively saying that, but that's kind of, as an outsider now that I've broken up with that community, I see that rhetoric kind of being pushed around. And it's a very weird thing because on my page, how you look really is irrelevant to me. I'd rather you be, maybe according to society, you're 5 or 10 pounds overweight, technically, right? According to your doctor, but you may feel the most healthy. Your fertility might be thriving now that you have a little bit more extra fat and weight on you. Like these are all beautiful things that I think is missed in the fitness community because they're so focused on that aesthetic, whether they realize it or not. Like think about how hard they push themselves to look a certain way and keep their sponsorships and keep selling programs. It really is. And I think that's like a really deep subject that I actually don't even think I talk about enough, because obviously it's a controversial topic, because how do you prove something like that if someone's not actually saying it out loud? But it is this underlying theme that I've been seeing with counts where they're so pro body positivity and it's all about like loving yourself and just moving in a day, but then it's like, buy my program, eat the way I eat, take the supplements I take. Like there is no room really to just be healthy and support your body and be in tune with yourself. So it's a weird stomping ground, but I think really, to answer your question, like how do we divide that, it really is about it's really about the self in general. Is how do you view yourself, how do you want to feel, instead of relying on these personal trainers and fitness influencers to tell you how you should look to achieve whatever it is, whether it's happiness. Like you're always going to be unhappy if you decide that you're always going to be unhappy with how you look, or if you go into fitness for the wrong reasons. I went in for the wrong reasons of wanting this dream body, got it. Guess what? My life didn't magically become perfect. I got I traded that for something else. I kind of traded my soul essentially for a slew of other issues. But yeah, I think it's a weird place to be. And I'm hoping through, accounts obviously like mine, and definitely, people who like to also preach the things that, you like to preach, and others about the fitness industry and about just this harmony between fitness and wellness. I'm hoping more accounts, and hopefully much larger accounts, will start to preach more about this and not be afraid to say a lot of the things that, may get them hate, because I know everybody loves to be liked, but there are a lot of things that need to really be said in order for people to kind of wake up and see what's actually going on behind this veil of fitness and abs.
Right. And that takes us beautifully into, in the idea of wanting to be liked and needing to be liked. And I think a lot of people come up against that when they're going on their health and wellness journey. Like, and you post this a lot, like family and friends, like not being supportive, or being judged, or people feel like we're judging them because we're eating differently from them. And I would say that's one of the number one things I hear in my community that's stopping people, like the social aspect and wanting to feel like they are liked and accepted. And a lot of times we say, okay, I'm going to go on this journey. I'm going to eat this way. I'm going to avoid these foods. And then you go to a social setting or you go to dinner at your mom's and it all goes down the window because of that. How have you handled that in your journey, or what advice would you give to people
Yeah,
in that
I mean,
aspect?
I've been more vocal about this. I feel like as of recently, because obviously the holidays are coming up and I'm also getting older, so I feel just more naturally secure with myself. I feel like that happens as you kind of reach your 30s where you're like, I'm about to feel really good and I don't give a shit and I'll step on people's toes if I want to, kind of thing. But yeah, especially when it comes to friends and family, I never knew when I went into health, I thought people would be happy for me. Like I thought there would be this like, good for you. That's amazing. Like that's what I think I'm just a little naive thinking that, but that's what I genuinely thought. And I had the complete opposite reaction. It was more like, oh, what do you mean? Like you're already skinny. Like why would you want to go on a diet? You're already stick thin, or like, oh, you sound crazy for thinking everything's gonna kill you. Like you're no fun anymore, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just like the weirdest thing. And that's kind of why I made like my own little slogan of like make health hot again. Because when did it become this like criminal thing to take care of yourself? Like why and it's crazy because I really obviously I hate to compare, but it becomes obviously now it's like this fitness versus wellness situation. But I go, sometimes I'll come across videos of people showing, what they eat in a day, or these fitness accounts showing their pantry, and it's just full of artificial crap essentially. And all the comments are positive. But then I'll go and show, let's say I'll just show a video of like what I ate in a day, and it's 1,000 comments of like, oh my God, that's what you eat. That's so restrictive. Can't believe you eat that. You sound boring. But it's like, okay, whoa, like what is going on? So yeah, like that's why I kind of have my little mantra now of like, I hope we can just make health hot again and make it this thing where good for you, like good that you want to do this, because it is kind of the path less walked, right? Where people don't really want to go that route. And a friend of mine actually said something really interesting where she said a lot of dietitians these days, whether they're obviously taught one way of seeing things. And I'm sure this is the case with fitness influencers too, but it's much easier to tell like your fans or your followers that they can kind of eat whatever they want, because there's no debate about that, right? There's no who's going to say, oh, I can eat whatever I want. Like I'm going to be like, cool, thank you, that's great, amazing, I can eat whatever I want. As soon as you start kind of telling people like, hey, this probably isn't the best thing for you, it becomes World War III, and people are so pissed off, and you become kind of hated, you become canceled. Like I've had people try to say I'm restrictive and I'm all these things, when this is actually the most free I've felt with my health and my diet ever, and this is, I feel more free now being restrictive in certain aspects of my health than I did when I was literally free to eat whatever I wanted, because then I would have crippling symptoms that wouldn't leave me very free. I'd have to stay home, I'd have to take pills, I'd always be like hunched over in pain. Like that's not a free way to live. That's perceived freedom for sure. But yeah, it's like a really weird situation, because I thought I was going to get praised for pursuing longevity and health and wellness and be this like poster child in my in my friends and family group, when in reality I'm like looked at as a weirdo and like, oh, like she thinks like, anything that's like not organic is gonna kill you. It's like, no. And if we're gonna make it that simple, like, okay, that sounds a little ridiculous, but it's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. It's a lifestyle. There's so many different aspects to it. So yeah, we're hoping that, through conversations like this and more accounts coming forward, we can make it seem like really that anyone can do it and anyone can achieve it. And it doesn't have to be surrounded by how you look or how much you weigh. It could just be this where it's pushing forward and making healthy decisions. And it really just comes down to that, really.
I have had that experience too, like especially when I go home to visit family. It's taken 2 years for them to actually believe that I'm serious about this.
Yeah.
So now, like, I feel like what comes up with is like we train people how to treat us. So, like, if we become so committed to this way of living and eating, eventually they might not like it or agree with it, but eventually I think friends and family will stop giving you so much shit. What leads me into another really big important question that I have for you is like, and you talk on this all the time, and like, let's get really fucking real with it. Like this conversation about no food is bad or no foods are bad in moderation, which I can understand to an extent. But
Yeah.
what I talk a lot about is the addictive properties of food. And you talk a lot about this too. And the fact that, especially if you're wired for addiction, if you have addiction in your family history, if you're ADHD, if you're just constantly seeking out dopamine, like some foods you just should not eat. And I stand behind
Yeah.
that. So let's talk about like this, or all food's a chemical. I know you get that a lot. Like,
Yeah, I
what
hear
is
some
real
pretty
food, you
crazy
know?
things. Yeah, I hear some pretty crazy things. I've pretty much heard it all because the opposite side, and it's crazy because the opposite side and us share a lot of the same ideas, which is like dieting is stupid, stop doing juice cleanses, you don't need to detox, you don't need to like do detox juices, and like we all agree on that. Where we don't agree is how you should move forward with your diet, right? Because if you think about it, dietitians are mostly programmed and taught to kind of pursue this whole no food is good or bad, everything in moderation, that whole ideology, mainly because people struggle with eating disorders. And I can see how this idea of food freedom can be helpful for people who've been told their whole life that you can't eat this food and you can't eat that food and you can't eat this food and you can't eat that. I can see how just being like, all right, let's eat anything, let's start there, because some people are just scared to eat in
Right.
general. And do I think that like just going at it and just being you can eat anything could maybe be helpful for somebody first starting out with just like this absolute fear to just eat, period? Yeah, I do. But do I think, I'm going to be like, well, if all you eat is Oreos, let's start there. I'm going to be like, that's probably not going to be good, not just for your actual food addiction, because Oreos are created to be addictive, but it's not good for your nutrition. So your brain and your mood, like all these receptors that take care of your mood and your anxiety and your depression, and you're not getting the nutrients that you need to support your brain and support your other organs. So now you're gonna have this other slew of issues. And then on top of that, that's not a meal. Like how is it helpful to say, well, if all you eat is, or like, I've had someone who's like, all my child eats is McDonald's. Okay, how did we get there? Right? Because we're not designed to crave McDonald's unless we've had it. Our bodies naturally will crave food that's been around for centuries. So it's like start there. And we're getting further and further away from like the inception of a lot of these foods, right? Because a lot of these artificial sweeteners were created in the 90s. I was born in the 90s. So I probably wasn't even exposed to artificial sweeteners probably up until I was like late toddler, like a young child,
Yeah.
where a lot of people now, babies are being exposed to these things in their formula, in their purees, in a lot of their fruit juices and things like that. Like now they're being exposed to those things way younger than maybe us 90s babies. So we're getting further and further away from that era of things. So as somebody who struggled with a form of binge eating where I would, eat clean throughout the week and then I would have a cheat day at the end of the week. That's a form of binging, right? I would just eat whatever I had in sight. And then it transitioned into, okay, well, that's not really healthy because then I feel like shit for like 2-3 days after, and I'm not shitting at all for like 4 days after. Then it kind of turned into maybe I'm just going to sprinkle in junk food throughout my day. So for breakfast, I'd have like a really good breakfast. And maybe for a snack, I'd have like a couple Oreos. Then I'd have like a really good lunch. But then I'd have like ice cream and brownies for dessert. Or, like I would just sprinkle it in throughout the day. So it wasn't like this binge moment. And even that was one of those things where I began to just kind of need those foods in my diet. Like I needed them. I looked forward to them. I looked forward to them more, like where I dreaded my breakfast and I dreaded my lunch, and I was trying to find ways to make my breakfast more appealing. So my breakfast would end up turning into like, this cookies and cream protein milkshake, and then I would be like, all right, how can I incorporate, something into my lunch that's more chocolatey or more sweet or more, that's what it came down to. And my palate was just like so off. And people don't realize like that's why the fitness industry has been doing so well, is because they're creating all these, fantabulous flavors that are just like all over the place. You can pretty much find a flavor for anything. I've seen Swedish fish flavored pre-workout. Like I've seen bubble gum, bubblicious flavored pre-workout. I've literally seen it all. And people are having this for breakfast, lunch, dinner, whenever they feel like it to kind of satisfy those cravings. So yeah, do I believe there are bad foods? And yeah, I do because there are foods that are being linked, like highly processed foods has literally been linked to early death. Like there are studies, there are plenty of studies to support this. It has been linked to cognitive decline. So people aren't even thinking properly. And their brain health isn't optimal. So that's why you see these, gigantic reactions from people when you tell them, this food isn't good for you, you shouldn't be eating this. People have very unregulated emotions because they're not getting the nutrients they need to support their mood and support their blood sugar and do all these things. So yeah, it is a very scary ripple effect. And these ingredients, it's not just the products, these ingredients are in everything. Things that are marketed as healthy, things that aren't marketed as healthy, like straight junk food, they have a lot of similarities. So I think if you truly want to be healthy, I think you're going to have to restrict foods that are highly processed just because of all the things that they've been linked to.
Yeah.
Like if you want to truly be healthy and you're wondering why your skin isn't great and your gut hurts, and you're going to have to do a form of restriction so that you can almost like detox your palate to start craving and finding real food, the perimeter of the supermarket, essentially, to find those foods exciting and palatable again. Because I know people who like, they can't even drink water. And this is the biggest thing is if you cannot drink plain water, that tells me your palate is completely messed up. And that can take years to transition off of. But I'm people I really struggle drinking water. I hate the taste. I'm like, it has no taste. It's just not sweet enough for you, or it doesn't taste like, a Sour Patch Kid. That's probably what majority of your diet has looked like since you were a child. So yeah, it comes to a point where regular food is not palatable anymore. You don't even like it. You don't even crave it. So there's so many foods now that I've cleaned my palate from the artificial crap that I started to love again. I used to hate peppers. Now I can eat peppers by like the bucket. And there's so many situations. I used to not really be like a big meat person, love meat now. Like I've tried more vegetables in this past year than I've tried my whole life because I was always, what we would call a picky eater, because what I only ate was highly processed foods. So yeah, like my palate has completely changed, and that's because I stayed disciplined to eating what's real.
Yeah. That's my favorite thing to talk about because like to the point, and I love comparing it to addiction. Like I almost lost my job because my cognitive function was not there. I was being late to work because I needed to go get McDonald's or gas station snacks, or I was hiding it. And I was causing our bills to not be paid on time because I was draining our bank accounts to go get fast food and
Oh yeah.
snacks. It's a really real thing. And I encourage people too to go a period of time restricting so that we can reset and start to heal our brain, heal our taste buds. And then when you go to eat that food again, it does
Yeah.
not taste the same. It tastes terrible. And your body is like, ooh, no, we don't want this. And
Yeah.
that's how you know, like,
Yeah.
this is not real food.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
remember
chemical
going
concoction.
back to like a couple foods that I used to eat all the time, like religiously, like after I haven't had it for such a long time. And I would think that I would go right back into like kind of that addictive pattern. And I remember like my vice was Oreos. I would have probably like 2 or 3 Oreos like a day. And then I eventually, like as I got fitter, I would have like a row. Um, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna miss Oreos so much. Like that was the last thing to go for me was Oreos. I was like, oh, what's an Oreo? So I went without it for a really long time, and I had it like I want to say like a year ago. Like someone made like an Oreo like thing with like it had Oreo crumbles on top, and I was like, oh, this is fine, whatever. I literally like instantly got a pain in my tooth because of how sweet it tasted, and I was like, I cannot believe that I used to eat these, and I was like so addictive. I wanted to cry thinking about never having one again. Where now I'm like, oh my God, I can't even eat this and enjoy it. I probably had like a bite. So that alone, like cleansing my palate, like healed my relationship with food because now I can have things like in moderation. Like I was able to have that Oreo cupcake, have a bite and be done with it. And I was like, yeah, I don't really like this. And then I continued on eating like fruit or something else. So like, yeah, I think we need a period of just like, we need a break from the shit.
Yeah, exactly. And something else. Do you agree there you don't need to restrict calories when you're eating real food,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I think, yeah, I just don't believe like I feel like there's other factors of weight loss besides calories because I know people who have been very restrictive of calories for a lot of their life. And then when I used to take clients, they would come to me like, I'm already eating like 1,200 calories or 1,400 calories, and that's like 1,000 calories under my deficit, and blah blah. And I'm still not losing weight. It's because your body literally does not feel safe in itself. Like your cortisol is through the roof. You're working off of adrenaline. Your gut is all imbalanced. Like there's so many other factors. There was actually a study done on it was a twins essentially. One was obese and one wasn't, and they found a bacteria specifically in the obese twin that that was linking her to obesity essentially. So when they transferred that bacteria into her twin, she began to start gaining weight eating the same amount. So it was actually like a crazy like situation where we know that there's not just other factors, there are other factors of weight loss that isn't just calories. And the calorie thing was created in like the 60s or 70s. Like it's such an outdated thing where like now we understand more of how the body works and how blood sugar can affect, you know, weight loss, and not just blood sugar, but now all these additives put in our food literally linked to addiction. And if people like are interested in learning more, the book Hooked by Michael Moore, I think his last name is, or
Michael
something.
Moss,
Michael
right?
Moss. There we go. I know something or an O in it. Michael Moss is one of those books that compares a food addiction to cigarettes and drugs, and but it's a hard battle to win. He was kind of explaining in the book because food is a necessity unlike drugs, you know. So we don't look, so that's how, you know, a lot of these big brands end up winning lawsuits because they say, well, food is a, you know, a human right, like we all have to eat, you know.
Yeah, it's such an interesting subject, and I mean we could talk about that all day, but
Yeah,
food addiction is
that's a whole other slew of things. But yeah, like the food addiction thing, I think is the
yeah,
one factor that isn't talked about enough in the, you know, eating disorder
yeah,
environment. You know, people don't talk about that. They're just like, we just want you to eat. And I think obviously it's not as simple as to just be like, well, you have to eat vegetables. And this person's never ate a vegetable in their life. They only like McDonald's. But I think they're missing that education factor that, you know, most of binge eating is only looked at as emotional, but now there's like this physiological element where it's a lot of the time it's not your fault, you know, like I didn't want to shove my face with all those things, you know,
yeah,
maybe a portion of it, you know, I think a lot of it can be emotional, but I think we're missing that major factor where like these brands are evil and these scientists are evil and they create these foods to have a certain reaction with our taste buds, and they fire these neurotransmitters in our brain to crave it even more. So I think that's a big factor that's not spoken about enough, and it also takes a lot of the blame off of the person.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is what I talk about. And
Yeah.
when I started talking about it, I was so scared to talk about it for so long.
Mhm.
I was so scared to like say food addiction because I knew I was gonna get a lot of
Yeah. They're like,
backlash,
how can you
and
be
I
addicted
have.
to food? We all need to eat. Oh,
Yes.
it's like, no, it's like a real thing. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna see, I believe that we're still very much in like the infancy
Yeah.
of food science. You know, it's been like a fairly new thing. Like definitely within the past 50 years, which in science that's still very new.
Right.
So I believe in the next 50 years, we're going to be seeing even more things about this and more books to come out. It's just, if you start paying attention from now, you can do wonders for the generations after you,
Yeah.
you know, healing this process.
100%. And I mean, would you agree that we are being primed for food addiction in infancy
100%.
because of what's in our formula? And
I'm living proof. I was, my
yeah,
brother was we're both cesarean sections, and this is nothing against how you're born or whatever. I think there's pros and cons to both.
yeah,
Um, but we were both cesarean. I was an emergency. He was like, because I was already a cesarean, it was just easier for him to come out cesarean. But he was breastfed and I was formula fed from the get. My brother has always had better gut health than me naturally, obviously, because the bacteria that you get from breast milk, where I was formula fed, and I've always struggled with how I ate. I always struggled with just always having like that sweet tooth, like where my brother doesn't really have a sweet tooth the way I do. So yeah, it was just like differences that I saw later on in life. And just, when you're fed a certain way, we're seeing a lot of these ingredients and these junk food ingredients that a lot of parents, when they start to shop for their child, they're like, oh, we want to avoid this and we want to avoid that. And we forget that as soon as we're born, we can be fed, formula that's toxic. And then obviously there's the other side where like you can be breastfed, but if your mother didn't really eat well while they were pregnant with you, you can also hurt the child in that way too. So obviously there's pros and cons to both. And this is why it's so important to like get ahead of eating well and getting ahead of your hormone health and your gut health. And it's going to trickle and do the best that it can. You're going to try to do the best that you can for your child. I know children who, they say there's studies where before the age of 2 years old, that children should not be, the only type of sugar that they should be getting is either from breast milk, or milk in general.
Yeah.
But it actually helps them later on, like to have a healthier relationship with food and less chance of being a picky eater. If you can like wait off as long as you possibly can, it's just going to be better for their overall relationship with food, because naturally humans, we always are going to want the sweeter thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just more helpful waiting as long as you can. Obviously people want their kids to like enjoy everything, but like food shouldn't be the main source of enjoyment. There's so many other things in life that should be the main source of enjoyment outside of food, so I think if you try to surround yourself with food being your child's main source of fun, big issue I think there, and you're just really gonna they're gonna probably struggle a lot with food problems like I did. Honestly, growing up I ate a lot of junk food. Obviously, I don't blame my parents. That's like what we had available.
Right.
We grew up in the Bronx, so and my parents like would trade off. Like my mom would work in the mornings, and they'd bring the stroller to the train station. My dad would come to the train station, and they'd literally like tap off and switch off. So yeah, like a lot of the times we ate out, or it would be like a quick meal, or my mom would make leftovers of some kind. But yeah, they were like busy people. So yeah, a lot of my meals were like frozen from Costco or something. And again, it's like this is not something that you blame anybody for or to feel shame about. It's just obviously when you know better, you do better. And I think there's a lot of ways at any age to help a child along with their relationship with food. It's just hopefully you don't get to now this age where you're struggling with food addiction problems and really just, unstable when it comes to the thought of I don't think I could ever get rid of this food, because now it's become like your personality trait. Like I've seen people have like their Dunkin' runs and their Starbucks drink of choice has become their personality. And I think it's a very slippery slope, because how are you ever going to heal if you've made food your personality?
That's such a good point. And that just, it makes me sad, because so many influencers on the internet are encouraging so many people too, like people look up to all of these influencers who do their whatever protein shake they're using. And I want people to learn to think for themselves. And it's like, you and me are putting out information and also saying, go empower yourself. Like, go read this book we read, go watch this, do this. Like, don't just listen to what we're saying, but look into it for yourself. And this will be the last question, because like I said, we could talk all day, but one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get and a lot of backlash I get, and I'm sure you get this too, is like that we are privileged, that we can afford these groceries and not everyone can afford it. And I know like food deserts and certain groups of people are targeted with these ultra processed foods that drive food addiction, that cause cognitive issues. So what do you say to that? And where would you say is a good place to start if you are financially in a place where you can't just shop at Whole Foods? Like I hear that all the time. Not everyone can afford to shop at Whole Foods.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most common one I get. If they can't get me with anything else, they're like, well, you're privileged, or you're
Yeah.
elitist because you eat
Yep.
this way.
Yeah.
Which I find ironic because the brands creating this food are like the 1% of America that own everything. So like those are you're actually supporting elitists by eating like shit. So,
Right. And
so
they
like
are doing it on purpose
yeah, like they're doing
to,
it to keep you
yes,
as yeah, it makes no sense. So like anytime I get people calling me like you're elitist for promoting like wellness, like you're actually directly supporting actual elitists. Like it makes
that's the vote with your dollar thing, Illy,
yeah, and
which
that's why I always told like that's why I have my vote for $30 shirts because yeah, like who is your where's your money going to? And a lot of people don't even know, like this is a great brand. So I think there's a lot of ways. There's and personally me, since I've eaten both ways, like I eat healthier now and I'm gonna tell you right now, I think we're so accustomed to seeing everybody trying to sell us something, right? And as somebody that has a brand where like I sell a lot of different products, I get very I tiptoe around being salesy because I didn't start it as a saleswoman. I started it as a solution to a problem that I saw in the industry where I felt like there was not a safe place for me to shop anywhere. And that's why I created it. So I never come on the social media. I'm like, you need this product. This product's gonna save your life. Like I've never done that. I just want people to have a place where if they need something, if they need to swap something, they know they can trust a place to shop. So, but I will say, like, a lot of the stuff that people come at me for are foods that aren't even a necessity. Like, do you really need creamer in your coffee? Like, or is that like a nutritional, like, is that an actual meal? No, you don't really need creamer in your coffee. I'm not telling you not to eat meat. Like protein shakes and greens powders and like those are all luxuries. So if you actually just buy the basics of food, it's actually your actual grocery list is going to be 10 times cheaper than you buying cereal and creamer and um protein shakes and like all that ready-made shit. Like
yeah.
you know how many meals I can make out of just like one chicken? Like I saw one of my friends on social media. She her name is Angelica, I think Angelica, or she goes by Angie. She made 3 meals out of one whole chicken. Like it was the most like that's my thing is a lot of the time when you're buying ready-made stuff, that's one meal you're getting and that's it. You microwave it and you're done. Yeah, is it really cheap? But like at what cost? Because I remember going back and forth to doctors and I was really racking up those bills. So yeah, I think it's a temporary cost that you pay for long-term prevention of your health overall. So that's one factor of it is people don't think long-term.
Yeah.
And I think the second factor is you don't need like organic cookies and brownies and things to like be healthy. You really just need the basics of things. And I think because a lot of these options are free, like get outside, move, like you don't need a gym to move. You just need to air out like sneakers and actually you can even go barefoot if you really want to. You have so many options, drinking more water and doing all these things, moving, getting sunlight. Because it's free, I feel like people don't think that they're going to work or they take advantage of the free thing because again we're told by all these influencers that like this $99 greens powder is going to like this is what you need to feel healthy and get all your minerals and all your nutrients. Like no, honestly, if you introduce a new vegetable every week, you're already doing miles for your gut health. So it's like a really weird thing. I just think we're always being sold something. So if we're not being sold something, like it costs me zero money, like $0, and it makes me $0 to tell people to like move, get outside, get sun on your eyes. Like it costs me nothing. So people are a little skeptical, like, is that really gonna work? Like those healing modalities that are free to us have done the most for my health than like some greens powder or like a protein shake that promised me like weight loss or like some fat burner. Like we just always think that we need like the fancy shit. But if you shop the perimeter and you keep your meals simple, you're going to do so much for your health and you're going to save a shit ton of money. Like it's so cheap to shop in the Trader Joe's produce section. Like you get like a whole bushel of bananas for like 12 cents. Like it's insane. So it's like, and that bushel of banana is going to last me all week and I'm chilling. So, like there's people just think that you need all this superfluous things. Like you don't need to buy all the Olipop. Obviously I love Olipop and this is not Olipop slander, but people think that, like that's what you need. But that's coming from a place where people are so addicted to things like diet soda that they could buy a whole 12 pack of diet soda for like $1 where like now a single Olipop is like 5. So they're like, that's impossible for me to upkeep my Diet Coke addiction with this healthier alternative because it's so much more expensive. It's like, we're not telling you to swap one addiction for the next. This is just an option for what you need. You need to handle that addiction in other ways, meaning you need to get more nutrients into your body, incorporate more healing modalities into your routine. Like, it's not just about one swap for the next. This isn't like an eye for an eye, you know, like there's so much more than just swapping everything out, you know. And I think people don't realize that like an organic brownie is still a brownie, you know, like I don't need as many sweets as I used to need now that I eat healthier, you know. So there's going to be a time of discomfort. But I think for people to say like it has to be so expensive, I think they're seeing it through that view where their addiction is so cheap, right? Again, like I said, you can buy a whole pack of Coca-Cola and Pepsi for like $1.99, $2, where like a lot of these fancier drinks are way more expensive, but no one's saying it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade-off. You know, this is something, a treat that you have maybe every couple weeks or whatever the case may be. Like, I don't drink Olipops every day, like, because I'm not addicted to soda. You know, I have it if I like go to a party or something. And regardless, if I went to a party and I drank alcohol, I'd be spending money on alcohol, but I just spend it on 2 Olipops and I'm good, you know. Like, that was just an example, but it's such a bigger idea, like, than just this is so expensive. And I just think depending on what lens you look through it, it can be. But I think starting with those natural, like what's free to us, and then also like taking advantage of like local farmers markets. And I started growing my own vegetables because I realized I eat like 12 cucumbers a fucking day. So I'm like, let me just grow them in my backyard, you know, like, so there's other ways to do things. And even like forming a community of people maybe in your area and seeing what you guys can do. Maybe you guys all want to buy chickens and, you know, like people, I mean, sounds crazy, but I would love to do that with somebody, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think the whole like elitist thing is like gets shot down really quick. So I'm like, really, like, okay, that makes no sense. And then the expensive thing, obviously it depends. I have a whole post on like how to support your health during, if you live in a food desert. So, you know, there are ways to experience health or move towards health, no matter where you live, but it's just people just take them for granted because it almost seems a little bit too good to be true.
Right. I mean, all of that is spot on. And I always tell people like meet yourself where you're at. Like you don't have to start buying 100% grass-fed beef right now. And you don't have
Yeah,
to like,
exactly.
you
Just
know,
focus
it's
on
like
what's real. If it's
eat real
lived and
food.
breathed and grown on the earth, it's like fair game.
Right, right. And then honestly, I feel like once you remove all that processed junk from your diet and your brain's working better, you're probably going to start like making more money because you're functioning better. And
Yeah.
that's what's kind of messed up is like we are the elitists, but it's actually these companies
Yeah.
who are dumbing
Yeah.
us down on
That made
purpose.
no sense. When I heard that for the first time and I started getting like an influx, I was like, who is saying this? Because this makes no sense. Like the actual elitists, like are is who you are supporting by eating these. Like, how did like did we not see that big chart of like who owns everything in our supermarket? Like that is actually the definition of elitist. Like that is what that is. So the elitists are like, let's actually tell them that eating healthy is elite. Like this is a great plan. Like that just sounds so absolutely ridiculous if you actually know how everything, like how the food system works.
Yeah.
And I even posted today on my story about how the study came out because they assessed the Academy of pretty much dietetics and the curriculum, the eatright.org, like the curriculum that's formed and how they literally receive money from big pharma and big food. So it's like now we know, I mean, we always knew this because it was always public information. But now we know for sure that they're literally preaching to registered dietitians that everything is good in moderation and no food is good and bad because they're being paid to teach that. It's absolutely insane. So yeah, like I think people need to just, you know, if you use your brain, it makes a lot of sense instead of just, you know, listening to people tell you. Like I tell people, like, don't take my word for it, look it up. It's right there. This is all public information. People just don't care to look for it or find it because they don't believe it's true. But fortunately, it's true.
Well, and that leads me into the vote with your dollar thing. And I want you to talk about that because we as consumers don't realize how much power we actually hold. Like we
Oh,
think we have no power, but we have all the power because we're spending our money.
Yeah,
So
and I think the vote with your dollar thing is like, it's not just about, because I've had people obviously say like not everyone can vote with their dollar. And I love using this example because Food Babe, Vani Hari, love her. She's an idol of mine. She pretty much would make all these petitions for people to start, essentially petitioning for better ingredients in their food, right? So slowly people would just not spend their money at Taco Bell and McDonald's and all these places. So obviously there's people who are still going to shop there and eat there and do all those things. Obviously we know that that's always going to happen because that's a meal for a lot of people, that's what they can afford. But then recently Taco Bell and Chipotle and McDonald's and Burger King, they saw that health is becoming in, or like people care about their ingredients, right? Because we show this every single day and people vote with their dollar. And that's, you have to speak their language in a sense, but eventually they announced that they are transitioning a lot of their foods to whole food ingredients. So obviously it's still not healthy, right? Because the way it's processed is what makes it bad. They're using all these inflammatory oils, but they said at least they're going to use recognizable ingredients, and that benefits everybody. So that's a situation where voting with your dollar, whether it's you or someone else, or trusting your neighbor or trusting the people that do have the money and do have kind of the power to vote with their dollar, that it's going to eventually benefit everybody. So now people who that is their main meal of the day, or that is what they can afford, now they naturally have a kind of a better option. It's obviously it's still McDonald's, I get that, but that's a small win for those communities who maybe were being exposed to like severe cancer causing ingredients, where now at least all the what that burger is actually now made out of meat and lettuce and tomato instead of meat, lettuce, tomato, and gums and artificial dye and artificial, like it makes a big difference. So those are situations where voting with your dollar is helpful. And then obviously for the people who can't afford every day to vote with their dollar and do these things, you try to shop. I know people were like, oh well, this brand isn't available to me in Whole Foods or wherever. Buy directly from that website, support that website, because I've seen brands be able to not afford a spot in Whole Foods, because you have to pay for those spots, be able to not afford a spot in Whole Foods, where now we see them worldwide across, I mean, like not world, nationwide, all over Whole Foods, because people vote with their dollar. People are saying, we want this. And you can even reach out to your supermarket and say, hey, I would like this brand being sold at the supermarket. Like there's so many ways to vote with your dollar, and voting with your dollar also means just not buying that product at all. For example, Heinz came out with an organic ketchup. If you're like, hey, I can only afford Heinz because like the actual clean ketchup is like garbage, or is like too expensive for me, but the Heinz is garbage. Guess what? Now Heinz goes and creates an organic ketchup. So now you can still get quality ketchup from the same company. Yes, you're still supporting Heinz, but you forced Heinz to kind of bend the knee and create something better for everybody, right? Because Heinz is everywhere. You can find Heinz in Target and Walmart and everywhere. So these are like little ways that voting with your dollar becomes really impactful for everybody, not just yourself, but communities where those are the only brands they have access to.
right. I love it. I mean, what even Hershey's came out with an organic
Yeah, and
chocolate.
it's actually freaking good. Like the organic Reese's, I was like, oh shit,
Oh, I
like they
haven't
did
tried
something
it.
with that. And that's because that's where the money is right now. Like people have to understand, like brands, these major brands, they follow trends, right? That's why you don't have Kourtney Kardashian coming out with a supplement line because the supplement industry is down. No, the supplement industry is on the freaking rise. This is a big deal. So she knows she's going to make money. That's what businesses do. So if they see that it's going towards wellness, brands listen. They will create products because that's what people are spending their money on. Period. That's how. And now as a business owner, I understand that. So like I see it on like as a consumer side and as a business owner side, like that's what people want to see. And this is, brands want to make money. So they're going to start making more natural things because that's where the money is going. This is why once you see the Kardashians making something, like that's clearly the trend of the year. So
And still read the ingredient label because that does
yeah,
not
always
mean
read
it's
the ingredient
actually
label,
clean.
but yeah. So, like little things like that. So I think that those are things that benefit everybody down the line, because we hope that as we continue to make health this hot trend, we'll start to see more brands just do better over time. Like we don't want the dyes anymore. Get rid of it, and if you don't get rid of it, we're going to force you to get rid of it by not buying your product.
Yes. As I
Sorry.
always say, they're either going to go out of business or they're going to change what they're
Yeah.
doing. Like that's their
Yeah,
only
you have
option.
to force them to bend the knee because you have to speak their language, which is money. So that's what it
Money,
comes
money
down
makes the
to.
world go round, baby.
Yep.
And that, well, that leads me into Live Healthily because I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's very few websites or brands where you can go and shop and every single thing is guaranteed to be safe and clean. Like you don't have to worry. So tell us more about what people can find on Live Healthily.
Oh my God, everything. So yeah, I started to live healthily because I just felt like I was always shopping at like all these different brands. I would buy like and then on top of that, I would buy like a protein, but I'd like the protein and didn't really like their pre-workout. So like I felt like if I wanted to mix and match, it would just become very expensive with like shipping costs, or I'd always have to wait for a sale or whatever. And I just, didn't have a place where I could buy like protein, but then like I also wanted shampoo, and then like, Sephora has like their clean section, but it wasn't really clean. So I always felt like I had to like scour through. It just took a lot of time and energy and work just to find like basic stuff. Like I just want to buy my body wash and get on with my life.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how the idea of Live Healthily came along with Matt and I, with my husband. So we started it in our guest bedroom, and we literally started with like organic and like a couple other brands, and people love the idea. People love the fact that like I go through every single product and they know what's not going to be in it, which is the best part. They know that there's not going to be artificial dyes, there's not going to be harmful gums, there's not going to be, like non-organic protein. Like everything's going to be of high quality. And then on top of that, you can buy your one protein brand and another pre-workout, and then like a different greens powder. You could really mix and match. And then we've expanded into, home, where it's like candles and fabric sprays, and we have hair care from shampoo to conditioner to dry shampoo. We even have men's products, we have babies products, we have lotion and body scrubs, like literally everything. And we hope like as we become bigger, we can just hold more and more and more, and it really essentially like will become hopefully like the Amazon of all things clean, and people will not have to worry about what's in their products. And on top of that, every brand that we have is a small brand. So we're like, I'm a small business, and then we support other small businesses that just care about their consumers and want to give consumers really great products. So a lot of these brands we've helped, really push them out into like, not obviously we're not in the mainstream yet, we hope to be, but we really give them a so much bigger audience because we don't always have the space to hold every single product. So I've been introducing people to, brands like Promix or Organic, where maybe I don't hold all their products, but now you can go shop directly on their site too and introduce yourself to like all new products and other brands that we have. So yeah, it's like I like we're doing a cool thing, and I get very excited to see where it's going to go. And we have so many plans to really expand. And yeah, like 2023 will hopefully be a really big year for Live Healthily, whether it's like meetups and hopefully a loyalty program for all our loyal customers who've really just been like, people forget we've only been open for like a year. So I'm like, we're still such a baby, and we're trying to like push out all these things, but people have made it really popular and been really vocal. Hopefully new branding, not like our logo or anything, but like new branded boxes. And there's a lot of things that we want to do, but to really compete with maybe other similar brands that come out that are similar to us, or other influencers that maybe want to do what I do. But yeah, it's just, it's been fun, and I love what I do. And I love finding really cool brands that maybe people haven't heard of before, which is the best part. Cause I'm like, no, this is like so sick. I feel like I actually just created it for myself. And I'm like, yeah, you guys can shop here too. Yeah,
Well,
like
I
it's fun.
love it because I have people constantly asking me, like, what's a clean option for toothpaste or what's a clean option for shampoo? And I'm like, I go to Healthillie and I'm like, just
We
go.
have it all. Yeah.
This
Like
is
we
where it
literally
is.
have it all. And then you get to, it's literally kind of like a Sephora, because you can buy any
Yeah.
brand at Sephora, but then you leave with a Sephora bag. So it's the same concept. So you get to leave with a Live Healthily bag, and you get all these cool like skincare products and your protein, and like really get to customize it. Cause I've, especially on this journey, I've realized like I really like a cleanser from one company, but maybe I don't really like their moisturizer. So it gives me the opportunity to try different companies without having to pay shipping on both, or wait for one to come in, the other one doesn't come in for 10 days. And like it was just really like one big happy place. And it really is my baby and I love it so much. And we're really excited to grow with it and see all the other possibilities, because really like it's endless. So it could be as big as we want to be or as small as we want to be. And the cool part is we've already had situations where brands have switched up formula on us without even telling us, and we've had to drop them. So it gives me that freedom that I didn't normally have if I was like sponsored. I'm binded to a contract, where here I'm the owner. If I don't want to hold you anymore, guess what? I don't have to hold you anymore because I don't like your product anymore, or I don't like the ingredients that you're using, or I don't feel like you're being transparent. So it really gives me the freedom to have say in what people have access to, that that a lot of influencers don't get when they have a sponsorship or a partnership with a certain brand.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I will say, guys, like one of my favorite ways to slip clean products to my friends and family is to get them gifts. So the holidays are coming up. Healthillie is a
Yeah.
great place to shop for that. Like to prove to people that clean products perform just as well or better than other things. Like
Yeah,
all
and
the
I'm like
products on your
so
site.
picky, because that was like the biggest thing when I was looking at brands, is like I didn't want to feel like I was just like rubbing like herbs and spices on my face. And I'm like, okay, like I really wanted things that were gonna taste amazing and really feel like a true swap to a lot of the things that I already had. Like I didn't want to go through this phase of like major discomfort where I'm like, oh my God, this protein powder tastes 100 times worse than whatever I was using. I wanted really high quality products, so yeah, I'm like really picky with that stuff. And it's good because even people who have their first order, and they're a little skeptical, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. They're like, oh my God, this is actually better than my cleanser or better than the
Yeah.
pre-workout, or I didn't expect to like this as much as I do, because they've tried things that maybe were like a DIY and they're like, yeah, this isn't as good as I thought it would be. Or, like a really indie brand where like they're like
Yeah.
literally, mixing all different types of herbs to like make a pre-workout or something, like you don't really know like what people have tried before, but we really I try everything at least 3 months before it ends up on the website. So I have to be really sure that I like it. Because obviously if it's not a good product,
Yeah.
I don't win, you don't win, like it's not a fun time. So I'm really picky when it comes to that stuff. But so far so good. We're doing really well, which I'm happy about. And I'm like really excited for the growth to come.
It's amazing. Well, thank you for doing that. I think you have courses on your site too, right?
Yeah, I have two courses, a Shop Live Healthily course, which is like my intro course to like how to just read labels, because I know that's like my number one question. And then the Break Up with Calories course, for people who just are kind of skeptical because they've been reading calories and counting their calories their whole life. And they're like, how do I get out of diet culture? Like where's the science to support that like just eating well is gonna like help me lose weight? So it's not just for people who count calories, just people who've just been in diets their whole life and they don't really believe that they can lose weight or feel healthy if they're not following a diet. So those are my two courses. And you can take them at any time, honestly. So
Awesome. Okay, well, tell us where else to find you and any last words you have.
yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Healthily. You can find our business Instagram at Live Healthily, or livehealthily.com. And then just on TikTok, which I don't really post as much on TikTok, but I'm mostly on Instagram. And those are my only accounts. Anything else is a fraud.
You have a big following on TikTok. I noticed that the other
I
day.
do, but like,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like
because
it's
they're
like
mean,
fake.
right?
I feel like it's like a fake following just because like you don't get even half as much engagement. Like the engagement on TikTok, I have no understanding of how it goes. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like your own followers like don't even see your own stuff. So you just have to hope it like goes viral and call it a day. But and plus people are like really mean on TikTok. So
Oh
I just
yeah.
try to, for my own sanity, I try to stay off of there. As of
Yeah.
recent, I've learned the hard way that people are ruthless when it comes to their protein powders.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we could talk all day, but
Of
we'll end it
course. Thanks
there.
for having me. It's been a long time coming.
Yay. All right. Bye, guys.